This podcast is made possible through donations from listeners like you and our partners at Tallman Equipment. Tallman prides itself in having more lineman tools in stock than anyone else. And now, when you're shopping online at tallmanequipment.com, look for the truck logo that says in stock and ready for shipping on 100 of items on their website. That logo means that item is in stock and ready to ship the same day in most cases. When it comes to getting the tools and equipment linemen need, trust Tallman. Line 11 Clothing Company, making apparel for our first responders with a positive message to patriots that you can be proud of. A proceed of the cost goes to helping our foundation ignite the fire for father engagement. Give them a follow at Line 11 Clothing Company on Instagram. And last but not least, Monzingo Knives. Each knife is created with craftsmanship that only a tradesman could provide. Find them on Instagram at Monzingo Knives and get your American-made Monzingo knife today. Hello, and this is David once again from the Show Up That Foundation. Today we're going to be talking about marriages, okay? All marriages, even the really good ones, need mending. The routine of jobs, kids, chores, and other commitments can overshadow romance and passion with any husband and wife. As a result, couples can feel disillusioned or even alone. That is why we have created this marriage series, a platform for husbands and wives to come and share what they do to be successful. Welcome to Marriage on the Line, guys.
Hello.
Howdy.
Absolutely. Well, today our special guests are Rickey and his wife, Priscilla. They have been married for 6 years, and together they have adopted 2 girls and foster kids through DCFS. So thank you guys for coming on our show.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, I'd like you to open up, Rickey, with you telling us a little bit about your story as growing up and stuff like that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. Like a lot of guys, you know, I'm originally from LA area, Compton and Long Beach, Linwood area, that little triangle. Growing up, just had one of those. I had 2 parents, which is a blessing, but I probably had one of those childhoods where you wish the parents weren't together. Mm-hmm. Had a really abusive mother who was abusive very emotionally and mentally, and a father who didn't know what the heck he was doing. Right. Mm-hmm. He did everything wrong to be a dad. To be a man, he was good. To be a dad, it was terrible. And thankfully, there were other entities in my life who kind of pushed me in the right direction. Joined the Corps. So in fact, I was trying to get out of the house. Right. Mm-hmm. I was like, let me out of here. Joined the Corps on a Monday, left on a Thursday. Came back a few years later, joined the sheriff department, LA Sheriff Department. And then took that, moved it on to San Bernardino PD, worked in San Bernardino PD, got married and got divorced in that order. Part of the problem was, I think, the work issue, kind of like what happened with my line life. Mm-hmm. I wasn't able to separate work from family, and that really impacted my marriage. And so in turn, my wife did the same thing, and it ultimately didn't work out. And luckily, I was able to join the IBEW as a journeyman, or as an apprentice at the time. Mm-hmm. During that time, man, I just traveled. I hit pretty much most of the continents on this planet. I just went in and everywhere I could, whenever I could. I should leave on a whim, right? I think I went to Egypt. I saw a commercial on a Monday morning and left Wednesday afternoon, and went to Egypt for a while. And then I, went to Germany, went to Thailand. I was just doing anything and everything. And then luckily I came back and met my wife, who actually I had met 23 years before that originally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had met 23 years before that in junior high. Mm-hmm. And
wow,
it was a blessing. I actually got a message on Facebook while I was up on a pole in Northridge. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what to do with myself. I actually climbed down the pole because I didn't know what to do. I was like, what she responded, and kind of freaked me out. I was asking guys on the crew, like, how do I respond to this message, And we got together, and she's been my blessing ever since. Our marriage has been, I think in the beginning was pretty interesting. again, because I didn't really know how to be a husband and a dad, because I had bad role models. So I had no idea what this was. And we struggled pretty hard. And then one day I took a look at her dad and mom, who I think are my mentors when it comes to being in a marriage, because they are best friends. They go everywhere together. They do everything together. You know, they're inseparable. And I was to myself wondering, how the heck is that how it's supposed to be? You know, are they supposed to like each other? There's no dishes, no holes in the wall, no police, no, you know, assaults, no PIs, no, you know, no other women and other men and photos and all this going around. Like this isn't how a marriage is supposed to be. Okay. And at that moment, I kind of was like, let me mirror what they doing, because it's working. And I think we got into a really good place after that.
That's amazing. So Priscilla, your parents are still married today?
They are still married today, to this very day. Yes.
That's great. And so they gave you a really good example of what marriage is?
Yes, I was going to say that's exactly it. I have been fortunate and blessed enough that I was able to see a model of how marriage could possibly work when there's a lot of communication, compromises, give and take, and collaboration. Growing up, we didn't come with a lot. We actually migrated here from the Philippines when I was about 6 years old. So all we had was each other. My sister, my mom, and my dad, and myself all came here with like 4 boxes and not much else.
Wow.
And seeing the sacrifices that my parents gave, because in the Philippines, they were well educated, but coming to America, they had nothing. They couldn't even transfer their education to US equivalency to be able to hold a decent, good paying career. They had to start from start from the very beginning. And my mother was a waitress and my father was a mechanic. And they started from the very beginning, tried to earn some money to help the family, as well as get their degrees evaluated for US equivalency so that they could apply for the jobs that they have degrees in.
Wow.
So it was a lot of family time and a lot of depending on each other growing up. And I saw that with my parents. There was a lot of back and forth of, okay, how are we going to have this house running? Okay, mom has to work the night shift for service. As you know, the most, usually when it comes down to restaurant business, the most busiest time and most lucrative time is during the evenings.
Yeah.
And we were still young at that point, where my sister was probably around 7 and I was about 6. And it was something I was able to see throughout elementary, throughout junior high and high school. They were supportive. I could only, and actually, come to think of it, I have only seen my parents have a disagreement once in the entire time. And it wasn't a fight, it was a disagreement that they just disagreed on a topic. And I can't even remember the topic.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't know people actually live like that. I remember there was an argument and something crazy going on every moment. You know, they'd cuss each other out about who went to the door first. It was just bad. You know, when I see them, you don't understand. They're just happy to be happy. You walk around like, why are you guys always happy? What are you doing?
Yeah, I saw growing up, my parents were kind of like your parents, Rickey, where I was like, these people are better divorced than they are together. Because, I mean, I remember having radios thrown in the house and just all kinds of things. But my mom was the fiery one and my dad was the manipulator. So it was interesting growing up. But once they got divorced, it was better when they were apart. But at the same time, that created issues as well. So I definitely relate to what you're saying.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And
I have
David,
I was going to say, I have 2 sisters that what you just said that were molded by that, seeing that every day, but they don't know that they are. So they do the same thing with their significant other and spouses.
And it's crazy to see how like that pattern that goes on. Like I see the same pattern even with my upbringing and just seeing how my parents, just related to each other. And I see that with my other two siblings that I have,
Mhm.
and it's interesting, because you want to tell them something, and then at the same token, you're like, nah, they'll figure it out themselves, or you do say something and they get offended. So either way, you're at a loss there, so I just stay quiet and let them figure it out, let them work it out in their own marriage, so.
We pray they work it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your wife was saying something, and I'm sorry I interrupt you, but it just reminded me so much when you said that. I was like, yep, that's my sisters right there.
Oh, no, you're totally fine. I was actually going to say that it's interesting that when we're young, we don't recognize those patterns. It's only like after the marriage process kind of has a way of refining those things out of you and showing those things to you in the marriage process.
Oh, yeah.
Where you get to like start seeing what you need to work on if you are self-aware. Some people can go through their entire marriage and never want to look at themselves or what they're doing or their pattern. But I mean, if you're self-aware and you're able to look at what your marriage is kind of bringing out of you, you can look at it and fix it, which is good.
Yes.
I think that was the hardest part
with us
because my wife was really independent, when we got together, and she too was divorced and had a crappy ex. And, of course we bring stuff into our relationship, right? This person was bad, therefore I need to be guarded because I don't want that to happen to me again. Right. And I need to do this and that. And we would have that problem. I would tell my wife, I'm like, hey, we got to work on this together. You can't treat me like the other guy, like I'm the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
I got to be who I am. You got to treat me like I'm Rickey. And we went through some really hard times. And then also she didn't understand the abuse that I had went through because she didn't go through abuse. So she couldn't fathom what I was saying. I think one night we had a hard argument and I was explaining to her that the arguments that we were having was worse than nails on a chalkboard. It was like somebody was picking at a sore in my soul.
Mm-hmm.
So when she would say and do things, I'm like, you don't understand. It's hurting me deep. It's not superficial. Like I'm not trying to run away from an argument. I'm telling you that you're picking at something that is extremely emotional to me. And I think I was shaking.
Yeah.
When I was like, I can't do this anymore because you don't understand how deep rooted pain this is.
Mm-hmm.
And with her, I had to also understand. With my wife, I was like, you have to be a better guy. Like it takes sacrifice. My father really didn't do all that when he was younger, and I had to really understand. And then she told me what I needed to do. And I came to her. I said, how do I be a better man? I said, help me with this reflection here because I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what mistakes I'm making. I see you upset, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong because to me, those things weren't wrong.
Mm-hmm. Right. Priscilla, how did you guide him through that?
Well, it's actually a double-sided mirror because in his humility and asking me, it allowed me to look at the mirror myself and say, okay, what is it that I have to do? So I just told him, okay, well, I have an issue with X, Y, and Z. You need to communicate with me more. How you communicate to me is very important because what you say and what you do has to match. And then once I talked to him and we kind of established a understanding ground on how we were going to treat each other. One of the things that in reading, there was a lot of reading and a lot of like taking time to really understand marriage that I read that really resonated with me was that men seek for respect. And more than anything, that is at the very top of their expectancies as far as marriage. And I had to take, like Rick said, I always had to depend on myself as far as career-wise. And, growing up, there was a point in the early 2000s when independent women came out.
Yes.
And every woman, every female, that was their theme song. So needless to say, when that theme song was out, It was embedded in my head. And I was like, no, I could do bad by myself.
Mhm.
And it really took a moment, a very long moment actually, of a learning experience to really realize, okay, a marriage is not just about me, myself, and I. It's not about being independent women. It's being individuals in a marriage, in a relationship that you're working on together.
Yes.
So that, once I took a step back and really assessed what that really meant and how I could become a better wife, it took a lot of Rick saying, how could I become a better husband? And me looking at myself saying, okay, how could I be a better wife? Because he's putting in 4 steps forward to meet me. So how can I do the same and meet him? So it took a lot of that, but there was no way for me to guide him outside of me saying, well, this is what I want. Because you know how they say, treat others how you want to be treated.
Mhm.
Once I read, treat others how they want to be treated, because how they want to be treated may be very different how you want to be treated.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
That spoke volumes to me and him. So then I had to ask Rick a lot. Okay, well, how do you want to be treated? As he then in turn asked, what do you want from me? How do you want me to be a better husband?
That's
so it's
insight.
And that didn't happen overnight. That I can honestly say that did not happen overnight. It's still a work in progress. It's still something that we still work on every single day. Even just
but I see the difference though, because now when we walk around, everybody's like, I want to be like you guys. Like, what? We're so goofy now together, because I committed. One of the things she said was, I had to make sure she was forefront of my mind. So I made her my best friend. I said, you know what? There is no one higher on my friend list than my wife. I said, if I'm going somewhere, I'm going with my wife. If we're gonna, if we're gonna go do something, this is my road dog everywhere. I didn't put anybody above her. I said, she's gonna be my road dog. And it's funny because when we go out, we have our own language. My wife started saying this term real good all the time. And somehow, yes, if anybody hears me talk to her, and it's so just addictive because neighbors hear us all the time or just random strangers, but we might be talking to each other right now. And I'm like, hey, baby, real good. How you doing? Real good. And, she'd be like, hey, I'm doing real good. Where you at? Real good. I said, oh, I'm on my way home real good. You want something to eat real good? She'd be like, yeah, I want something to eat real good. What you want real good? That's how we will literally talk. And then what's funny is we go places with other couples and they'd start saying it and they'll be like, okay, real good. And then I'm sure David, you're my friend online and you'll see mostly everything is me and her together, right? Wherever we go in the world, she's right there with me. And I think all these experiences together, and we go to church. We're real religious, or my wife is extreme religious. She's really heavy into the church. She went to ministry school, so she got me going to church with her every Sunday, and I made it. And I knew that was something she loved, so I made sure that we make it there no matter what. Right? It's like, hey, sorry guys, I would love to do this, but my wife and I have to go to church. And then after that, we started doing our date nights, like going to movies, going to painting. We do escape rooms all the time, just me and hers when we first started.
And I think that helped a lot. And I'm not here to, well, actually, I am here to promote escape rooms, but
when you do
I've been wanting to do one of those.
When you do it as a group of two, though, when you do it as a couple, it is awesome because the only person you can rely on is your spouse.
Yeah. And I think it's a different type of date night because you have to work as a team together. And it's okay. Like, for example, you could go to the movies and watch a movie.
And you're quiet the whole time.
You don't have any interaction. There's no communication. There's no teamwork except for watching a TV. And then maybe afterwards asking each other, oh, how did you like the movie? But the entire time in the escape room, the moment you step in there, you're completely relying on each other, solving puzzles. And then when there's a fear factor in it, you're like, okay, who do I run to when I'm scared? And so we started it just by doing our first, when we were having our tough times, that was the date night that changed the trajectory because it allowed us that 1 hour of just figuring it out. I mean, we stared at that wall for a good 10 minutes. Like, what
How do
the?
we get out of
What
this?
is
tiny
this?
room?
What did we get ourselves into?
I'm serious. And and it's beautiful, right? Because you're in there and you're no phones because you can't bring phones in. There's no distractions. It's just two people relying on each other. And yeah, I mean that was it.
And this one wasn't scary or anything like that. It was a lot of it was like where in the world is Carmen Santiago type.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I remember that.
So we were looking at a world map and like, okay, what is it that we have to do with this map? And we stood there looking at each other, looking at that map, like maybe this, like but in that moment, we learned to kind of work together,
feed off each other's strengths.
Even if we weren't talking, we would look at each other, and our body language, like they say, it's 90% of your communication, told it all.
I definitely need to get that place from you. We'll put it in the show notes or whatever. I'm interested. You guys sold me on it. I want to check that out.
You guys go on date nights like that and just you time, just the two of you together? And
yeah, we do. We go on date nights. We mostly go and eat because we're big foodies. And we'll sit and talk. The last time we went out, we laughed our heads off. We were talking about something kind of serious. And my husband was like, oh wait, I do that. And then we started just cracking up laughing. It was a good time.
I think she was like saying something about something, her dad did or whatever. And it was funny because I'm like thinking about it. I'm like totally engaged, looking at her, paying attention to her, no distractions. And then I started thinking, I'm like, crap, she's complaining about that. And I'm doing that. She's sending me messages over here, you know what I mean? But we were just laughing. It's a great time. And I think that's so important to have that one-on-one connection time with your spouse, just to get away from the kids. No distractions like you're talking about, and it'll work wonders in your marriage. I know for us, we had gone through some counseling, earlier on in our marriage and stuff like that. And we're having issues communicating. Right. And one of the exercises that the counselor had us do was not looking at some blocks and communicating with our eyes closed, covered. Right. She would have to tell me what I needed to do to build something or to solve the problem with these blocks. And it was pretty interesting to see how our communication was completely different from each other, but we knew what we were talking about, you know what I mean, with each other, and just being able to just show us that, hey, we can communicate. We just don't choose to communicate.
Isn't that so true? I think I told Priscilla that one day. She got mad at me a few years ago. And at this moment, I had to explain to her. I said, I think it makes sense when you say it, right? But it's not being received the way you intended it to be received. So you're telling me something. You're upset at me for some reason, but I'm not understanding. I'm not understanding what you're saying. Your communication is different than the way I understand it or the way I learn. And I think that really helped when I told her that, because all of a sudden she was like, I need to talk the way Rick understands. so he gets it. And after that, I remember she started just explaining things to me in such a better way. And so, like you said, kind of with the blocks, it was like, okay, this is the problem. This is how, when you do this, she would even use line like we're talking on the right away, bro. She'd be like, when you're building a pole, when you do this and this and this, well, you can't just do this, can you?
Cut it in the clear.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because I actually took her out. One of my old foremen about 4 or 5 years ago, he had this family week, and everybody was allowed to bring somebody one day of the week. So my turn on my day, my girls are too young, so I ended up bringing Priscilla. She had the FR shirt on, she had the hard hat, she's in the bucket with me. She got a harness on, she putting hole plugs in and trying to, dig up an anchor and do all that kind of stuff. And afterwards, I mean, she talked to me so much different.
Yeah, I think putting myself in his shoes helped me to understand, because one, I'm too short to reach anything. Yes, and the machines that they were using, I'm like, okay, that won't work for me. I mean, it was to the point where I was essentially, but at the end of the day, I took a paintbrush with some black tarp and was painting a wall. And I was like, okay, I have another respect for linemen, because I can't dig a hole, I can't hold that machine. I can't even get on top of that bucket to plug a hole. I couldn't do it. So then it allowed me to see why he was always tired and exhausted and burnt out at the end of the day from a long shift.
I think that's great. That's something that I think every wife should be able to experience, to see. I mean, even if it just means the husbands putting the tools on the wives and them having to bear that weight just for a day to see how heavy it is of what our men have to carry. And just stepping into their shoes, having that empathetic view is a huge, huge thing. And I think that's really amazing, because it probably totally changed your perspective on him and what he went through in the day and stuff like that.
Oh, yes.
Great.
Oh, definitely. And the funny thing is, now the table's turned.
Oh yeah.
The table's turned.
Oh my goodness. I used to I not yell, but I used to be upset. She was a business manager in Texas. She would just work all night and she would be burnt out and irritable. And I'm like, you don't do anything. How are you?
You work from home.
Yeah, you're from home. How are you tired? What, you know, I'm outside all day and, you know, I'm in rubber gloves and sleeves and I'm going off. We're fighting. And then now, you know, I kind of just kept moving up right there. You know, I'm in the office now running ESH. And there's these days where I'm burnt out, tired. And I actually walked up to my wife and apologized. I said, baby, all those years I talked trash to you. I am so sorry. I had no idea.
Took a moment, because for him, it was mental and physical, but a lot more physical exhaustion being out in the field. For me, working at home and dealing with meetings and working remotely, it was a lot of mental exhaustion. And both are still, you know, are impactful, but it's just different. Until you experience it, you kind of don't understand.
And it's good to see, to have that transition, that point of view, that empathy, right? Because for me, like, I retired in 2020 from line work, being out in the field anyways. And I stayed home so my wife could go to work. And because she wanted, you know, that was one thing that she had always desired, is for her to have a job that she can go to and get dressed up to and stuff like that. Right. So I was like, okay, I'm retired. I'm doing this podcast stuff, whatever. You know, the kids, it was lockdown, is during COVID. Right. So I was staying home with the kids, and my gosh, dude, just to change them roles like that was absolutely insane. I mean, just dealing with the kids consistently, making dinner, making lunch, and then doing their homework with them, you know what I mean? And then plus trying to get this whole foundation going and everything else, you know what I mean? It was, my hat's off to the women who stay home.
Oh, it's brutal, right? It's
brutal.
She did me dirty. She went on a girls trip one time for a week.
A weekend.
For a weekend. No, it was for a weekend. It was like 3 days.
Yes, 3 days.
Man, at the end of those 3 days, I was crawling like a soldier on the way home from battle. Like, yeah, like, you know, getting up in the morning, getting the kids, walking the dogs, making sure the dogs are fed, you know, making sure that, you know, my daughter's got something to eat, going to work, in business meetings, having to like step away to make sure everybody is okay. And at the end of the day, you know, when everybody's put down and you're finally able to stop, you fall asleep just almost on your feet. And I told her, I said, I don't understand how you do this every day, you know, because we have a weird dynamic. You know, your wife wanted to go back to work. My wife was done with work. She told me, she was like, I'm good, no more. But we have this really interesting dynamic where, you know, the way I explained it to her, I said, you know, if I'm the car that's driving, you know, a lot of this, you have to keep this car running, right? You're the mechanic. You got to keep the engine running. You got to keep, you know, the car clean. You got to keep, you know, the registration up to date. So she handles basically every meeting that we have. Like, she knows everything that I do, down to even my work schedule. She, you know, she plans out she knows my medical appointments. She knows when I have to go teach at the school. She takes care of everybody in the house, like down to the minute detail. She takes care of everything. She makes sure I eat healthy so my blood pressure doesn't get crazy. You know, she's honest. So I said, you run this ship, but I got to be the ship that keeps moving. So I got to keep, you know, getting out there and making things happen. and you can run everything else here. And when we kind of accepted our roles that way, I mean, we really started clicking on all cylinders at that point. You know, I said, you know, baby, I'm not going to get in your way, you know, and we started supporting each other. That was another thing we started doing. I think that really helped our marriage. When Priscilla will make a decision, you know, in front of the kids, you know, we no longer argued. We no longer went, no, it's a dumb idea, you know, or something like that, right in front of the children. We started saying, you know, that's what your mom thinks. And then we'd go in the room behind closed doors and I'd tell her, hey, I don't think you should have ran with something that way, you know, but I supported her at the time. I didn't go against her. And then she started doing that to me. Same thing. I'd make a decision. She'd support me. If she disagreed with it, then we talked about it, you know, behind closed doors. And we also made a rule. Any big decision had to have 2 yeses. There could not be a no and a yes. It had to be 2 yeses.
Wow.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's great.
So if I made a decision, I want to do something big, and she was like, Rick, I don't like that. Even if it's something I was so sure about, like, let's gotta do it. I said, if she's not on board, we can't make it happen. And ultimately, in the long run, it helps out because it showed her that I valued her opinion. Right. And then she does the same thing with me. She'll be like, no, I got to check with Rick first. And I'm sure there's things that she wants to do where I'm like, nah, I'm good.
No, like for example, it took 5 years
the pool
to get a pool. 5 years. But now, I mean, like, he's loving it. He got exactly what he wanted. But interestingly, 5 years ago wasn't the time to get the pool for us.
Right.
It was now. Like, the timing had to be now. Everything pretty much aligned to this day, like this time frame. Finances, being home to be with the contractors, making decisions. We were both here instead of one person out in the field and one person at home making all the decision. We both had a say on this project. He had his wants as far as his big old grotto, and I have my wants like a Baja. But everything, and if we just take the moment to really respect each other's opinion and wait until there's a yes on both ends, it really does work out. And it took a lot for us to come to that point, to get a yes on both ends. Because we'll just be in a standstill. Well, I say yes. Well, you say no. Oh, I say yes. Well,
I guess we ain't doing it.
Okay, we're just gonna sit here then.
I guess we ain't doing it then.
So there are times when we're like, okay, we're just gonna sit here and kind of we'll just table this until like next month.
Right. I think it's interesting that he said that he valued your opinion. I mean, so many husbands, I know I'm guilty of it. For a long time, it's weird. It's like you don't value your wife's opinion. It's almost like you think you know better, right?
Yep.
And I don't know why that happens, but it's awesome to see that you were able to do that with your wife, to value her opinion, because she's when you don't value someone's opinion, right? You devalue that person.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. And you don't think you are, but you are. You're right. You're absolutely right, and hit the nail on the head with that one.
I think we do that a lot now too. And I'm telling you, man, it's hard. It's hard as a guy. It's hard on your ego sometimes. You're like, I know that it goes right there. Like, all right, my wife will want to decorate the house, and I go, that's the dumbest idea in my life. You know, thinking that, like, who would to do this, right? And you know, sometimes, you know, I sit there and listen to what she has to say, and I always look and say, well, maybe she's seeing it from a different lens than I am, right? Because I'm only seeing it from my lens. And more often than not, I started realizing she had a good opinion on certain things. I was like, you know what? I may not view it that way, but she does. And then in the end, the outcome was a really good outcome. And I started trusting her more and more and more and more. And I'm like, you know what? Nah. If Priscilla says it's good, it's good. I mean, even when it comes down to my work, you know, she helped me make some decisions that ultimately affected my position, which job I should take, like where I should go in terms of my training and things like that. And I sat down and really talked to her, and she'd give me pros and cons, and I would sit there with an open mind and say, okay, what do you think? And man, it was, I don't know. I don't think I've had bad experience yet except when she bought me Tellies, and I was like, nah, I ain't eating that.
I think
I had to eat the bird and the egg. I say that was the only bad decision. I had to eat that darn balut.
Oh, dude, I still have that smell, dude, in my nose,
bro.
Oh,
I mean, even chasing it with tequila didn't help, man. Just the feathers, feathers in the feet,
feather beats.
Oh, nightmares about that, man. You know,
no, that's called initiation into the family,
right?
That's what it was. You could handle the bird.
You gotta explain what it is for people that don't know.
So for people that don't know, listen to this. It's the nastiest thing in creation. So they take a bird egg that's basically, it's a baby bird in it. It's no longer like the egg yolk. It's a baby bird in the egg, and then they boil it, right? And after they boil it, you crack it open, and there's a bird embryo, like an actual bird. It has feet, it has feathers. It got feet.
The eyeball.
Yeah, eyeballs and everything. You just eat it. Like you just, and you don't like pull it out of the egg and cut it up. No, you like suck it out of there. And I was like, I was thinking about it. You know, why? Who does this? And mind you, that's something else. Like me and Priscilla, we made a deal when we got married, right? We travel. She travels the world. I travel all the time. So part of our deal when we got married is we would travel every year. And then whatever nation we're in, we always ate the food there.
Mm-hmm.
We were in Japan, right? We were in Japan, and a guy walked up and said, you know, you want some octopus balls?
Yes.
Remember that? I had to fight the urge, because it was like it looked like a hush puppy. It was an octopus ball. And I remember we were joking because I couldn't eat it. You know how you put it close to your mouth and you're like, yeah, Rickey, just do it. And then she just ate it. And, you know, we were making like the crude jokes. I was like, baby, how's them octopus balls in your mouth, you know, and stuff like that. And I said, all right, it's not going to beat me. It's not going to beat me. I could do this. And I chewed on them octopus balls. I was like, I'll be sharing this with people, you know. And,
that's very brave.
Yeah. 700,000 people are going to listen to this.
Man, and we've always had those weird experiences overseas. And doing stuff together. So we went shark diving in Bora Bora, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember we were sitting there at the dock, and there's a bunch of people, and we're friendly, we're talking to people, and this yacht pulls up, and the guy gets off, and he starts calling names out, and he's calling names. So everybody on the dock gets called except me and Priscilla. So I'm at that moment, the boat pulling away, I'm pissed off. I'm about to call the travel agent, and a little tiny rinky-dink, you know, boat from Popeye pulls up, right? Mm-hmm. And this guy's like, Rickey and Priscilla? I was like, yeah, you know, so we got a little private boat. He takes us out in the middle of the ocean, and we're talking, we're vlogging it, and I'm talking to my wife, and he starts throwing this chum in the water, right? Which you don't do, right? So
my God,
this blood chum in the water, and there's like 20, 30 of these sharks surrounding the boat. So mind you, my back is turned, I'm recording Priscilla, and I have this video, David, I'll show it to you. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden we hear a splash. This fool jumped in the water. We're like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, you got to get in the water. Me, Priscilla, like, what are you talking about? And, he's like, oh, the real sharks are coming. The real sharks are coming.
Oh my God.
The real sharks are coming. What are these little sharks surrounding the boat? And we get in, and here come these reef and tiger sharks coming from the dark.
Oh,
you know, they're coming up from the bottom. And he's like, oh, look, they're right there. They're right there.
Oh, snap, dude.
And we're in the water, and I'm not a snorkeler. You know, you're from the Philippines, so you know, I know how to power swim from the Marine Corps. Dave, you know that survival stroke.
Oh yeah, underwater recovery stroke.
Yeah, I can do that stuff. And Priscilla somehow kicks me in the face.
Oh,
and I drop the camera, my snorkel flies off, and I'm like 3 or 4 feet in the water, just telling myself, don't panic, they're gonna come and eat you. What are you doing, baby? What are you doing? You know, and then she convinces me to go to Jamaica because there's a private butler that lives with you. Uh-huh. And of course, he's with you all day. Yeah, he's with you all day. And she goes, let's go to Jamaica. And I'm like, baby, I grew up in Compton, and I lived around black people my whole life. What do I want to go hang out with a bunch of black people for? You know? And I was like, I want to go somewhere different. She's like, you're gonna have a butler like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I was like, oh, okay. So, you know, we get there, and we meet this old couple who says, hey, a lot of young people come here and they never used a butler. So he says, he's like, if you come here, you need to, indulge. I said, all right, no problem. I said, I'm gonna see what this guy ain't gonna do. And so, we got him doing everything. He's folding underwear, putting it in drawers, and we have him doing all kinds of stuff. So we go out on an excursion, and then we're on the way back. And I said, babe, I'm gonna call the butler and have him run me a bath. So I call him up on the phone, like, hey man, have me a bath ready when I get there. Or no, I have Priscilla have a bath. Have Priscilla a bath when I get there. And have her some red velvet cake, because she only likes red velvet cake. Like, yes, sir. I get in the room, I jump in the bath. And Priscilla's like, why are you in my bath? I took the bath, I ate her cake, and I got her bath. The bath was dirty. So I called the guy up. I was like, hey, bro, I need you to come clean the bathtub out and run to the bath. And bring Priscilla some more red velvet cake. He's like, sir, the kitchen's closed. I said, I don't care. Go find my wife some red velvet cake. This cat went out to town, found red velvet cake, came back, washed out the tub, ran her a tub of another bath, and then the next day we were down by the beach. And so the beach was like a nice long walk from the resort. And so they have beach butlers, right? And I said, no, I want my butler. So I call him. He walks all the way down in his butler outfit and burning heat. He's like, what you need, Mr. Hayes? I said, hey, I want you to bring me the dessert tray from the restaurant up top. And he was like, well, you want them to get it? I said, no, I want you to get it. He came down with a huge tray of every dessert that the restaurant had.
Oh,
I mean, I was putting them to the test. I was like, what? You convinced me to come to Jamaica, Priscilla. I'm going to use this guy. I had him doing it. And then he pissed me off because we had a
Oh my God.
no, there was a door in our room, and I'm a black guy, right? So black people always die in a horror movie. So there was like this door in the room, and he said it was locked. He was like, hey, there's a surprise in the room. He told Priscilla that. And Priscilla said, what's behind this door? After he left. And I said, hey, don't be opening doors. There's some demon or some shit behind that. There might be some killer rats or some zombies. Doors for a reason.
Since day one.
Yeah, since day one, the door was locked. And I've seen enough movies to know that's how stuff happens.
Yeah.
Ask.
Yeah, like, so he finally comes back. Was it not the next day? It was like 2 days later or something.
Yes. So no, the next day I asked you.
Oh yeah.
Hey, babe, let's just open this. Let's see what's behind this door. And he goes off, no, we're not opening that door. It's locked for a reason. That's day 2. I'm like, are you sure? Like, there's a nice door right here. Day 3, he comes back and he said, how do you guys like your surprise? And Rick looks at him like, what surprise? And he said, you have a private balcony. There's only 6 of this in the
entire resort.
Man.
It's a private balcony that overlooks the sunset and the water. I was so mad at him.
I looked at Rick like, okay, you don't want to listen to me. You don't want to listen to me.
Half our vacation is we don't get to use this private, gorgeous balcony because he didn't want to tell me. But
oh my God.
To my defense, like I said, I don't know what was back there. Sure. I could have started the apocalypse. I don't know.
Pandora's box.
Thank you. Right? You just don't go messing with stuff. I had a lockout tag out on it, bro.
Yeah, you don't remove tags, man. It's
locked tag. That's how I tell my wife. But
what happened to listening to Priscilla and trusting her advice?
Early on in the marriage. This was early on in the marriage.
Oh, this is before you trusted her.
I trusted her ideas.
There was no trust.
I mean, she did kick me in the face.
Dude,
we got lost in Paris. I think we ended up walking like 10, 15 miles one night. Because I had proposed to her on the Eiffel Tower, believe it or not.
Wow.
She when we got back to the States, I went to K Jewelers to go get her a ring. So I'm in there with a bunch of older ladies, and they're helping me out. And we had like 5 rings in front of me. And I even called her sister up. I'm like, hey, I'm on video chat. Hey, which one of these should I get? Her sister says, get this one. The ladies are all like, oh man, this is amazing. She's gonna love it. I go to the house. I wake my wife up before I have to go to work. I'm on one knee, right? I'm like, baby, I know I asked you to marry me in Paris, but here's the ring. I want you to let you know that this is for real. I give her the ring, and she smiles. She give me a kiss, go back to sleep. The same day, she's like, were there any other rings?
No, that's not what I said.
Yes, any other rings.
Wait a minute. No.
And oh my goodness, I took the ring back, and them ladies lost their mind. They were like, did she say no? Oh my, they were like emotionally in tears. Like, I can't believe she said no. And I was like, no, she just wants a different ring.
Well, no, so the funny thing was I tried on the ring and it didn't fit me. I ate too much or whatever the case may be, I gained some weight. So it didn't fit me. And so he was like, oh, well, you want to see the rings I was looking at that I asked your sister about? I was like, yeah, let me see. So I look at the picture and I'm like, oh, I really like that one right there. It was a middle one. It was like a princess cut with diamonds around it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, babe, since you got to change my ring size.
Right.
I really want this one.
Really want that ring right there.
One right there.
Then I got her sister on the phone. I'm like, you set me up.
I love that you were brave enough to say, this is what I really want. Because I think a lot of us women sometimes, well, I know I'm guilty of like being a people pleaser and really kind of placating to my husband. I would just be like, oh, okay, thank you.
No.
You know, and then secretly down the line, I'm like, I'd really like a new ring, you know what I mean? But he's not reading my mind. But I mean, I think it's really good that you're brave enough and clear enough in your communication that you were just like, hey, you know what? I'd really like this ring. And hats off to you, Rickey, for going to the store and doing it.
You should have seen too.
Yeah, most guys would have got all offended. You don't like this ring?
like, I did all this work for you, and it wasn't like it was a money thing because it wasn't a huge different cost in it. I think it was just I value Priscilla's happiness, right? And I knew it wasn't about money because my wife will fold a penny, bro. I mean, we will sit in the store and walk around to buy something that's 30 cents cheaper, right? She will shop. She'll go to other stores. So, I knew it was never about money for her. She's always trying to save cash. But I relish the smile on my wife's face. When she is happy and things are going good, I'm like, man, I'm doing a good job. It's an ego thing at that point, right? You're like, I'm killing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
But
How do you, sorry. Go ahead, Priscilla.
also to piggyback on that, I will have to say that I felt safe enough to say, hey, this is the one I want. Because I figured, hey, this is in the top 5 listing, these are the top 5 rings. So, and I knew he wasn't going to be upset and go off at me about it. Because he really asked me, which one is it that you really want? Since I have to go to the store anyway and exchange it for the ring size. And so then that's when my finger went to the middle one and I said, this one. So he gave me that space to be able to feel comfortable as well and be brave enough to say, hey, this is going to be something I'm looking at every day. I really want to look at this one every day, kind of thing.
I love that because that is a huge part of it. We do have to foster an environment of safety for our spouse to come to us and to know that we're not going to like beat them over the head for not liking the ring we picked or being upset about the dinner if it was gross or you know what I'm saying? Like we do have to foster an environment of safety so that way we can create the intimacy, we can create the trust, and that equals the long-lasting marriage.
Yes.
And to even just piggyback what Jenny's saying, just being able to for the wives, right? Men don't read minds. For a lot of us men, it's like, speak up. Why didn't you say something?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, so that's what we've been doing as well. Like now she's learned, but like she said, I had to create a safe space for them to come to me, right? For her to come to me. So now with that being said, it's like, man, I don't read your mind. What do you want? Even with her gifts now, with gifts, I'm like, what do you like? You know what I mean? Here, show me,
We joke so much about the Notebook, because I swear you, man, I am not a Nicholas Sparks guy. I couldn't read a Nicholas Sparks movie. Our book, but she made me watch those freaking movies, The Last Ride and Best of Me and all that, which I'm going to say to your listeners, just man up and watch it. It's a hell of a film, right? These films are good. We're always quoting some of these movies of the Notebook one. We'll be like, what do you want? What do you want? And yes, she does. I think she did learn to speak up, to let me know. Because I, like you said, I'm like, but I would tell her, baby, I don't understand. I don't get it. you know, and she'd be like, Rick, this is what it is. I'm like, okay, that's all you had to say. Now I know I can't just figure it out on my own sometimes. And I do need help to understand. And I think that's probably where we succeed. We succeed more or less right there.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, baby, I don't get it. Can you help me out? You know.
What do you guys think you are doing regularly in order to feel so grateful to have the other person in your lives? Because that's what I hear. It's like a theme in your marriage and the way you guys talk about each other. You guys have great respect for each other and also just seem to really value each other. Really
enjoy
higher,
each other's company,
and higher than it seems anybody else. So that person, it's obvious that your spouse is the number one priority in your life. And I think that's really amazing, especially with your background, Rickey. And I just got to ask, like, how do you guys keep that and maintain that mindset?
How do we keep it?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I think we engage in each other's interests, and you know, you sacrifice a lot. Like I know for me, one of my interests is helping kids, right? Based on my background and what I grew up with, you know, dealing with DCFS, you know, bringing children into the home, mentoring the young men in the neighborhood. And she helps me out with that. And in turn, she is a homemaker and a designer and a crafter. So I have to take interest in that. So we take interest in each other's lives. And I think that keeps us close more than anything. And then obviously church is a big part of it. You know, we go to church and do things. And then the we concept was probably the hardest thing. But now that we look at everything as a we, right? Like it's not mine. It's ours, right? I don't have an account. We have an account. We have bills in case it's the car, which it's my bill, her car. She always says that. But everything became a we, and I say probably for me, and I'll let Priscilla go on this one, but I didn't shun friends. I let them know that she was the priority. So when guys wanted to do stuff, I'd say, well, I got to bring P along with me, you know, or I'd have friends who didn't understand that P was a priority, and I let them go by the wayside. I said, hey man, if you're not in on this, then I'm sorry, bro. Because I don't go home to you.
Right.
Wow.
What do you think, babe? What do you hear?
I think just really understanding what order as far as your relationship should be. So for example, in a lot of this, when I was in ministry, it really embedded in my mind, okay, God first, husband. That's the very first physical person that is on the top of my list. So, you know, that whole leave and cleave in the scriptures, it really resonated with me. I was like, okay, my family is my husband and what we build together. Yes, I still love my parents. Yes, I still love my sister and all my family, but my family, my immediate family, my number one bond, my inner circle is my husband. And having to really focus in on that helped a lot. Really,
I think you got that from me though.
Really helped a lot.
I told my family, I was like, hey, I love you, Dad, but this is my house. This is my family. I appreciate your opinion, but your opinion means nothing here. I had to tell them, this is my kingdom over here. That's your kingdom over there. I used to hate that. They'd come over here and try to tell me something. I like, you can go. Like, don't tell me how to run my home.
And that's so detrimental because when your in-laws become your outlaws, it's a bad ordeal all the way around. You know, I know young in my marriage, that's the first thing that I started having to do is say, hey, you know, I appreciate you guys' comment, but you know, and then another thing too is don't go talking about your spouse to your mom and dad.
Yes.
I mean, that's like one of the worst things you could possibly do. You know what I mean?
Because they'll just reinforce whatever you feed to them. Like you go and talk to your dad and say, oh, my wife's doing this, she's being terrible. Your dad's gonna be like, yeah, get rid of her. Yeah.
Well, they're biased. You
I
know
don't
what I
want to
mean?
hear that.
Yeah.
Hear that.
There was a point in time in our marriage where I completely stopped talking to my father for a couple years because he expected me to take his opinion and his advice over my husband's side. And even if my husband was right or wrong, it didn't matter. I was going to take David's side over my parents' side because he is my family now, apart from them. I'm built like we have children together. He is our provider. He's our protector. I sleep in the same bed with him. I'm not under the same roof as my parents anymore.
Right.
So I did have to lay down those boundaries at some point.
Those boundaries are what is needed for a healthy marriage, healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Absolutely. I love our boundaries. We keep people and let people know like this is us.
Yeah.
And we don't even wait on people. I think that's another thing that really a lot of couples suffer at. For them, they always think they have to be around other couples and other people.
Yeah.
It's me and P. I tell people we're going somewhere. If they ain't ready, okay, later, y'all.
Yeah.
me and P are gonna have a good time, and we will go out and just enjoy each other absolutely. And I look forward every day. In fact, I get mad at her because she got mad at me. I left the house one morning, and I think I got down the street. I had to be a good 5 minutes away, and she called me on the phone. You didn't give me a kiss goodbye. And I was like, oh, my bad, babe. I'll kiss you tomorrow. She was like, no. You didn't give me a kiss goodbye. She didn't tell me to come back, but it was on the phone, that conversation, like, but you didn't give me a kiss goodbye. So I was next to the freeway, and I remember just like, damn it. I turned all the way around. I drove all the way home, gave her a kiss, then turned around and left.
Aww.
And even now, like I can't leave the house now without, hey, babe, I'm leaving. I don't care if I'm going to the store. Hey, babe, I'm going around the corner real quick. And people think I'm crazy because I do that, but I'm like, you understand, we've set boundaries for ourselves, and this is something we have to do in order to, go somewhere and do something. So
Yeah.
People don't get it.
No, they don't. But it's good to hear it though. Like just because your marriage is your ministry. I know we listened to Priscilla and she talked about how she had a lot of faith in God and stuff like that. Well, your marriage is what people are reading. Your marriage is your guys' ministry. That's what those daughters that you have are watching. They're mirroring that. They're seeing how you guys react to each other and solve problems with each other. So you're literally are building the next generation. It's amazing how important marriage is. And I think that's why marriage is so attacked nowadays.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think
my girls learn.
I think, and this goes back to what Priscilla was saying earlier about the escape rooms. It's kind of neat because when you were describing the escape room, I was thinking, man, that's like a little metaphor for what marriage is. Like you're in it with your spouse and you're faced with problem solving and stuff like that. And every time you get through like that escape room or that problem in life, it brings you closer and you feel more confident to rely on each other.
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she's my rock.
Yeah.
Well, it's even proven fact, like even with veterans, Ricky, and you're in the military too. Dude, veterans, their relationships are forged in the heat of battle through these struggles that they go through. Those are some of the greatest relationships that are ever forged.
Yeah,
through that struggle and adversity.
In fact, we tell young people that a lot when we encourage a young man on the street to go to the military. And I was telling them, I said, listen, you're going to have brothership or a brotherhood and friends because you guys are going to be tested by fire together, and you'll never forget those people. I remember people from way back. I think I remember more people from my time in the Corps than I do my time in law enforcement, even my time in the trade, because of just how hard it was. And I mean, I remember I found Priscilla 20 plus years later.
Wow.
And I knew her in high school when she was a mean girl.
I was not a mean girl.
She was a mean girl.
She just had boundaries.
Right. Well, Rickey and Priscilla, thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your story with us. And I know that our listeners are going to get so much value from this. We appreciate you guys. And is there any way that our listeners can get a hold of you or reach you on social media or whatever, if they have questions or anything like that, or anything you'd like to share?
Absolutely. If you guys ever want to reach out to me, and you can reach me on my Facebook. I can share. It's Don't Call Me Will Smith. You look at that. You can find me there and ask a question. You can reach out to Priscilla pretty much the same way, because she, on my social media all the time. Do you have a connection, babe?
You may want to give out, because all my stuff is private. So
yeah, that's what she uses mine.
She uses
mine.
So
And but yeah, if you guys want to talk to us, we are always available. All apprentices seem to call me and my wife all the time. Like even when they're having crises, if it's a emotional crisis, I put my wife on the phone. If it's a work crisis, I'll handle it. But we get calls all the time, and we're always willing to help out. We make time for people all the time. So,
and we could also provide you the link or our username, and then you could pick it down as well.
Yeah, and then also send me the link for the escape room. I'd like to post that too. I think that's pretty awesome.
Well, there's different levels, man. I could, if you want to do this just you and wife time escape room, I can give you some levels on that. We like experts now. We've been up and down. I can tell you some stuff where you're gonna walk into Denny's covered with blood.
I want one where I could have a safe word.
Yeah. There are legitimate escape rooms like that. They're cussing you out and handcuffing you and throwing you around. And then there's, I would recommend, if it's a date thing, go to a one where it's just you two.
Yeah.
Well, right on. Thank you guys so much for coming on. We appreciate you.
Right
Thanks
on,
for having
Devin.
us.
I appreciate it, man. And I appreciate you too, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.